Welcome to Theology Thursday, an ecumenical space for students to discuss matters of faith and theology.
I'm your host, Connor Grubbs.
I am your co-host, Ryan Mock.
And I'm your co-host, Johnny Grubbs.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Here's the deal. If you're listening to this episode on the day that it came out, Christmas Eve, turn it off and go spend time with your family. You have issues. You should not be listening to Theology Thursday on Christmas Eve. Okay, let me correct. If you're making a commute to family and you're listening to it, then that's fine. But if you're at home and there's family around and you decided to go in another room to watch or listen to Theology Thursday, which, who would do that? But if you did, I rebuke you. So here's the thing. It's Christmas Eve. We're releasing an episode on Christmas Eve. Next week, we'll be releasing an episode on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, eat.
So we get to spend these holidays with you guys. I take a break off during this week, but we already announced our 100th episode live event, shameless plug. It's January 21st. You should come be a part of it, but you can buy tickets in the link. But I counted the episodes out, including these weeks. So we're pushing through. We're going to do it. These are kind of casual episodes. We're not answering specific questions these weeks. We're just going to chat about the holidays, and I have an article for our main topic today from Gospel Coalition that we're going to talk about. But first, we got some Christmas subpoints. These are going to be some festive subpoints. So, who wants to go first? Christmas subpoints.
Well, I'll get it out there first. It's not really a Christmas subpoint, but it's around Christmas time. December 21st, which happens to be the day that we are recording, apparently a very large astronomical event is occurring at this very moment. Jupiter and Saturn, which are two planets in our solar system, if you were not aware, are aligning tonight. And they already did align, and they're still out there, and it's really cool. And this is the closest that they've aligned in several hundred years. The last time they got this close was apparently 1623. And so this is a very rare event. They do get close sometimes, but what makes this even rarer is that it's super close. And so if you look out with your naked eye, it looks like they're together. If you look through a telescope, you can kind of make out the difference there. I didn't do that, but Connor apparently got firsthand experience with this.
Well, my wife loves space, so she's got a really nice telescope, and we took it out, and we looked, and it was pretty cool. They're not perfectly aligned. You can tell the difference.
Okay.
You can see them both distinctly. And honestly, I, even with the naked eye, could see them separated. Mariah was surprised because, one, she said they should have been lower in the sky, and they should have been pretty much looked like they were aligned. Mm-hmm. So somebody got the date off a little bit.
But this event is occurring throughout the week.
It is,
though.
but this is when they were supposed to be aligned more so than any other day. That's what they were saying. And then it would have stayed that way for about 2 or 3 days. So
can you still see it tomorrow?
You can see it tomorrow. Hopefully, maybe they're aligned a little more, but it looks like at this point, because of the direction that they're going, they probably just didn't align as much as we thought. But they are very close. You usually don't see them this close together. So you can see, some of the moons around the one planet and the rings around the other. My wife would be ashamed of me for not knowing which is which, but I think Saturn has the ring around. I don't know. I'm not going to say anymore. But here's the reason this is significant around Christmas time is a lot of people are calling this the Christmas star.
Ooh.
So if you use certain software, you can actually, based on where the stars are now and their rotations, kind of go back in time and see where stars would have been at a certain time. There's a thing that was very popular. There was a book and a movie called The Star of Bethlehem that this guy made, where he used this kind of software to show what was happening in the skies during certain biblical events. Mm-hmm. And so he used this to try and explain the Star of Bethlehem. And so some people think that this is actually what happened, that the Magi would have followed. But there's multiple reasons that's problematic. One, it's only a few days, so it's not long enough for them to actually follow it to Bethlehem. But more importantly than that, we know that these guys studied the stars. That was part of what they did. That's why they followed it. And Mariah and I have talked about this multiple times because she loves science, she loves space, she loves how that lines up with Scripture and stuff, and people always try to especially people who are into, the stars and how that all works, try to find some sort of explanation for it of exactly what was happening. But the truth is, they knew the stars so well that it had to be something supernatural that God did, that God put in the sky. Because otherwise it would have just been like, oh yeah, those are aligning like they do every so 100 years.
Yeah.
So really it had to be something supernatural that God did for them to follow. So that was kind of the conclusion we came to, that more likely than not, it was something completely different than anything that we can actually log.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because God is capable of doing that, by the way.
So this is completely...
Because that's why they would have wanted to follow it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not supposed to be there, you know? They would have known it was supernatural.
This is completely unrelated, but I couldn't help. Could you say Bethlehem again?
Bethlehem.
How is it spelled?
I've always heard it said Bethlehem, but...
Yeah, I've always said Bethlehem.
Sometimes I say Bethlehem.
Yeah, that's what you keep saying Bethlehem.
Bethel.
That's what you keep saying is Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. Bethlehem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There you go.
You can sing it right, you just can't say it.
I'm just thinking of a ham given to me by the worship band Bethel. Bethlehem.
Scrumptious.
Scrumdiddlyumptious. Hey, so, Johnny, do you want to go next? Or do you want to go last? Last should be first. I'll let you go last. Here's the thing. There was this town hall meeting. I don't know where. I wasn't paying attention to details. But this kid was asking recently... he was very concerned because so a lot of families apparently this year, rather than leaving out milk and cookies for Santa, you've been given a lot of Santa subpoints. It's time for me to give a Santa subpoint.
Okay, I'll let you have this one.
They have been giving out, they've been setting out masks and vaccine. Families have not been setting out vaccines for Santa. Masks.
You can only have...
Masks and hand sanitizer.
They've been smuggling vaccines from the
How many
vaccination
So
centers.
families have
in
been
one
breaking
day?
into medical facilities, stealing vaccines.
We need
leaving them
vaccines
out
for Santa.
Can you imagine getting like
Every
billions,
house he just puts one.
billions of vaccines in one
Oh,
night?
yeah.
No, that came out wrong. They're putting out masks and hand sanitizer.
It's so funny because we joked about that. We're like, what do we shouldn't put cookies out,
Right, because it's not sanitary. So, and parents are trying to do this because they want their children to know not to just give out food to strangers or take food from strangers right now in the middle of a global pandemic. It's not safe.
Or any time, really, right?
No, it's okay if there's not a pandemic going on, right?
Yeah,
Because
just take food from any stranger, you know?
Anyway, and they're doing this, and then there was this town hall meeting, and Dr. Anthony Fauci, is that how you say his last name, Fauci?
Yes.
Fauci?
No, Fauci.
Please say Fucci.
No, it's Fauci. Somebody did the same thing the other day.
Fuji.
They were like, Dr.
Fiji water.
Fuji or whatever you
Fiji.
say.
Dr.
And I'm like,
Fiji.
it's Fauci. We've been doing this
Fauci.
for 8 months.
Fauci.
Fauci.
It's really, it's not even that late. We've recorded a lot later than this. Okay, so a child came to the mic and he asked, at this town hall meeting where Dr. Anthony Fauci was present, he said, what if Santa isn't able to come to any of the houses this year because of coronavirus? And you imagine for a child who believes in Santa, which we don't think you should lie to your children, but for a child who believes in Santa, and they're seeing all of these things get shut down, every fun plan they've had this year has been canceled.
Right.
They're probably thinking, what if Santa can't come? I mean, that's a lot of houses.
And you know, yeah,
It's a valid point.
Santa can't come. I'm sorry, you're not getting any presents for
Dr.
Christmas.
Fauci was like, scientifically, Santa is not a possibility. So
No, this is what he said. Dr. Anthony Fauci said that he went to the North Pole
Aw,
and had
this
a
is
meeting
awesome.
with Santa and vaccinated Santa himself so that Santa would be safe to deliver all the gifts on Christmas.
Wow.
So this is a whole nother level of indoctrination.
So now, yeah, how will this kid ever trust the leading infectious disease expert ever again when he's older, right?
Well, no,
One
but
thing
everybody thinks it's all sweet because it's teaching them that vaccines are important. But I almost think it's sending a wrong message because it's like, well, if you take the vaccine, you can just go to everybody's house and you'll have a great time. It's a little misleading.
I don't know. I just think that one day, like I don't know how old this kid is, but if it's like next year or the year after, I mean, Fauci's getting up there in years, but if sometime in the near future this kid learns the truth about Santa, now he can never trust the most respected infectious disease expert.
I don't know. That's right. Yeah, I don't trust my parents now because they told me about Santa.
So then he might miss out on life-saving medical advice.
Yeah. because Dr. Fauci's the only one who's able to give him help.
when he realized anti-vaxxer, anti-masker once he realizes that Santa isn't real.
Anti-Santa or...
All right, Johnny.
Okay, so I would like to talk about two of my very favorite things.
Your most favorite things in the whole wide world.
Besides, Jesus and my family. These are my favorite things in the wide world.
All right, let's hear it.
Christmas and weather. I love the weather. We started teaching Zoe about weather just as soon as we could. She has a little weather book. We keep track of the weather with these little cards that we pin up. And I love the weather, and I love Christmas. And I also love, I don't know if you guys have been vibing with this, but I love the chilly nights we've been having.
Yeah, I like those too.
Those are nice,
Better
right?
than the furnace nights.
Central Florida is going to see the coldest Christmas it's seen in 20 years.
Really?
Yes.
Central Florida.
Central Florida. So, you're looking at, although it's going to be pretty chilly here, it's not going to get much above the 50s during the day, even with the sun beating down and stuff like that. And the lows will be in the lower 30s. Oh. And it'll be in the 40s on Christmas Eve with this is kind of weird, but with some thunderstorms because it's been changing the weather so much where it gets warm in the day and then chillier at night. Mm-hmm. That's been bringing in some weather patterns. So it's going to be a little stormy on Christmas Eve. That'll be kind of interesting. But then it'll be really chilly in our neck of the woods, even chillier as you move into Central Florida. But it'll be the coldest Christmas in 20 years.
Wow. Well, thank you, meteorologist Johnny Grubbs. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do enjoy a nice chilly Florida night,
And I think that'll be really nice on Christmas.
I really try and take advantage of the cold we have in Florida because it doesn't come around often. So Whenever that cold comes in, I always roll down the windows when I'm driving and just taking it all in. I love that. I love it.
Yeah, it's good times. So weather, Christmas, chilliness, Christmas, it's just a beautiful, wonderful.
Well, look, if it wasn't enough that your parents lied to you about Santa, they've been lying to you about the biblical story of Christmas, too. Let's get into our main topic.
Oh, my goodness.
So, everything about Christmas you've ever heard is a lie. Okay, 5 popular misconceptions about the Christmas story. Now, I already kind of knew these, but I didn't want to make notes, so I let the Gospel Coalition sum it up for me.
There you go.
But, yeah, I mean, as you begin to study, you realize there's a lot of things that are like, we talk about a lot and we sing about in all the songs that aren't accurate.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, that kind of peeves me about some of these things that we're going to get into. While they're more likely, they are also not definitively proven.
Well, let's see. Let's see.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Let's see.
Okay, so the first thing they say is that this is a misconception, according to them, that there was a star the night that Jesus was born. Now, I will automatically argue with that and say there were multiple stars the night Jesus was born.
Who says he was born at night?
Thousands of stars. Yes.
No, but it's saying the problem is there's no indication that the star hovered over the manger on the night that Jesus was born, because when the angels announced the birth of Jesus to the shepherds, they weren't told to look for a star. They were told to look for something else. So this will be a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. So,
yeah, I suppose that if the star was hovering over, then the angels would be like, just look for the star.
Right.
Well, unless he was trying to emphasize a different part of the prophecy.
Okay, well, and the star is mentioned later, and the Magi use it to find Jesus, but this is like a couple years later. Jesus is not an infant anymore at this point. He's like a toddler. So the star is still there, and it's used as a guiding sign, but not necessarily for the shepherds, for the Magi at a later time in the story.
So here's my thing, though. So the wise men didn't come see Jesus, but he would have had to still be in Bethlehem. The Magi saw him in Bethlehem, right?
That's a great question.
I don't know, does it say?
It doesn't say, but they arrived in Bethlehem for sure because they ended up talking to Herod.
Right.
So it gets a little confusing because Jesus was also 7 days old, would have gone to see Simeon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, let's continue and see what else the Gospel Coalition tells us.
Okay, one of the other things they say is there are 3 wise men. We have lots of songs about these 3 wise men. Some of them are very catchy.
3 kings of Orient are...
However, and this is, you hear this sometimes, that number isn't really found in the Bible. It's the number of gifts that the Magi bring.
Which, for the purpose of a nativity decoration...
Yeah, this one
sense.
seems kind of petty to me. It doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter if there were 2. It doesn't matter if there were 20 of those guys rolling in there.
Or 100.
The 3 really are representative of the gifts more than it is representative of how many there were.
And 100 wise men would have been hard to fit on a nativity scene, so it works.
I don't know. They were probably in a cave. That's another thing.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing was that there was no room for them in the inn. They sing about this one in all the songs, too. There was no room in the inn, blah, blah, blah. And so the idea that there's this innkeeper character who turns Mary and Joseph away, like, I have no room for you, go away. The Bible never mentions an innkeeper. This isn't a character in the Bible. And it's possible that there wasn't even any inn for an innkeeper to be at. This is a recent study by Stephen Carlson makes the case that the Greek word normally translated as inn in Luke 2:7 is best to be translated as a place to stay.
Wait, could you read that verse? Luke 2:7?
Yeah. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. So he says place to stay. So the passage isn't saying there was no room in the inn, but rather there was no room for baby Jesus in the place that they stayed. And what place were they staying? Carlson argues it was probably in the home of Joseph's family in Bethlehem, perhaps in an adjacent...
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
Look, it's even spelled Bethlehem.
Bethel.
Bethel is spelled B-E-T-H-E-L.
Bethlehem.
Now?
Bethlehem. Perhaps in an adjacent guest room, which would have been small.
So they probably were like, the guest room's not going to work for the birth. We're going to need more space. And then they were like, I have a cave out back.
So Mary was kicked out by her in-laws. Wonderful. Christmas drama, right? So since Jesus could find no spot in the inn, the reasoning goes he must have been forced to stay in the stable. Indeed, every nativity scene ever created places Jesus in a barn of sorts. But the text doesn't say he was born in a barn. It only says that Mary laid him in a manger, Luke 2:7. So let's read that one. And she gave birth to her firstborn son. And
that's the same verse.
That's the same. So they're really focused on this verse here. So it might seem to suggest that there was a barn. It was actually common for mangers to be kept in the main room of village houses during this time period. Why? Because animals were often housed just a few feet away in an adjacent room. So basically saying that the manger being there and even them using that as a bed,
that doesn't mean that they were actually in a barn.
It was that it was necessarily something that was uncommon back then. Like
right.
It wasn't, Anyway, if we celebrate Jesus' birthday on December 25th, it's logical. So we all know this. Jesus wasn't born on December 25th.
What?
And who cares?
Yeah.
He may have been born in the spring or the summer. Here's the thing. We've gone through all 5 of these. Are any of these deal breakers? Do they really matter?
No.
But it is all interesting though. Like so far in seminary, I haven't heard what I've heard a lot of seminary educated pastors say about like the wise men probably saw Jesus when he was older, and I haven't heard that yet. And if I did, I would have a lot of questions. Like, and I'm sure they're explained, but like, how does that all line up? Because Jesus is born, right? Then he goes to see. Likely the timeline is this: he's born, he goes to see Simeon, and then they head to Egypt, right? They wouldn't go to Egypt before they saw Simeon because they would have had to see him when he was 7 days old. So they saw Simeon, and then they were told to go to Egypt when he's still an infant because... So the only way for him to see him when he's a toddler is if the wise men hung around for Jesus to come back from Egypt, and he would have had to come back from Egypt to Bethlehem specifically.
So Connor's looking up the passage right now.
There's nothing indicating the passage or what time they arrived. A lot of this is in subtext and historical subtext, but I don't know where it comes from.
Well, right, because they go and visit in Bethlehem,
Right.
and then they decide not to go back to Herod, even though that's what he requested,
Right.
because God tells him not to.
Right.
And then God tells Joseph to take them to Egypt. The only reason, according to this article, that we see a lot of people assume that Jesus was 2
Herod killed all
or
the
older, because that was the cap, was 2 and younger.
Yeah.
So
Were
that
killed.
was the range that Herod was going. Now, I don't think that's really enough evidence.
Yeah.
Maybe Jesus wasn't obviously wasn't a newborn when the Magi saw him. It's
Right.
not like they saw him on the same night as the shepherds.
Right.
So
But
that's
I
the
think
part
they
of the
would have
nativity
seen
scene
it.
that's
Yeah.
maybe,
Exactly. But I still think that they would have seen him before he was even a week old.
I don't know. I'm gonna think that if many biblical scholars believe this about the Christmas story, I think, and if I read enough about it, I mean, I'm sure they have good reasons to believe he was older. Like they're not just making it up.
Well, he's just
for
saying.
the
I mean,
sake of
maybe
making
there's
it
more
up.
reasons than that, but he's saying that from a scholarly perspective, it was Herod's cutoff.
Yeah.
But we didn't do a lot of research, as you can tell. We're keeping it casual this Christmas. But but this is, you brought it up, and it's just something that's always interested me. Now
Connor's just Googling this question. How old was Jesus?
we are doing some research. We don't want any dead air time. So, Ryan,
I'm going to
you're
sing
just drinking
a
the
song.
Kool-Aid of the scholars.
Oh, I mean, I
But
guess
okay,
they're smart.
that's fine.
They don't make stuff up.
No, I agree with that. I guess that's really my question. I just want to know what the scholars would say about how does it all line up and why. I mean, I don't know. The scholar's explanation would have to include an explanation of why the wise men would have seen him.
So yeah, really the only argument here is that he wasn't older than 2. That's
Yeah.
people always say he was like a toddler. He could have been 2 or 3 months old.
Right.
So the only thing that we really know is that technically Jesus was older. He wasn't a newborn. It wasn't the same night.
Right.
It wasn't when the shepherds that were in the area heard about it and came to see him. It was a few months.
I
He had
think
been
the idea-
circumcised.
right.
He had been taken through the whole process in the
Exactly.
temple and brought into a home.
He had seen Simeon and the wise men. So the arguments, and that argument still stands. I think maybe the one that's kind of spread like a Facebook conspiracy because of the 2-year-old thing is Jesus was probably 2 by the time the wise men saw him.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
all we know is
Jesus
that he
was in Egypt by the
Right.
time
Right.
he was 2. So
Right. All we know is that he was under 2.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, I buy it.
okay, that's fair. Okay, that helps me a lot.
So I feel like none of these things are really big issues, and then a lot of people take issue with the fact that the religion of Christmas has some roots in paganism, as a lot of things do, but were later on taken to be redeemed by the church, and we talked about this a little bit on the Halloween episode, but I just. As Christians, we have an opportunity to celebrate the truth of Emmanuel, of God with us, that Jesus was born. And there's nothing sinful about that, and Christmas, Christ Mass, it's a celebration of Christ. So, look, sure, people have turned it into a lot of other things with Santa and all these other things. But even a lot of these traditions, when it comes to trees and presents, and, maybe that'll be next year's episode, going into all these traditions and how they have symbolic roots in Christianity.
Yes.
I think there are a lot of people who are very extreme and legalistic that we need to just not celebrate Christmas at all because there were some roots in paganism. And I just that's going several steps too far, I would say. I mean, if you're celebrating what the pagans were celebrating, sure, that's a problem. But we as Christians at this time every year can, as the church, collectively celebrate the birth of Christ. That's a wonderful thing.
So my primary purpose of writing A Woolly Nice Tale, which was a Christmas television special that premiered on RT1 in Ireland, my primary purpose in writing that was to communicate the gospel, right, to children in a creative way. But the subtext of the story, it basically, during their journey, they discover the meanings of some of these Christmas traditions that we have. One of them actually with the Christmas candles originated in Ireland, so it was kind of fun to do that. So, but that's kind of the storyline. as they learn about all these traditions along the way and how they can be redeemed to have Christian meaning. So
Bless you.
if you want to go back to the archives on rte1.ie, you can check it out.
That was a shameless plug.
Really
Drop
nice
a
deal.
little link. Drop a little link. Yeah, no, I mean, look.
The hidden gem.
Hidden gem is in there.
Here's the thing. Anything can be redeemed unto the glory of Christ, and we're called to redeem. You know, our work, our relationships, our celebrations.
Yeah, I think it's part of culture care. I think that
Yeah.
it's a good thing. I think Christmas can be a great thing, actually, including all the stuff around it. I mean, but you have to be intentional about it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Don't lie to your children.
that's a hot take.
I
really.
never forgave my parents.
Isn't it funny? We won't get into this really, but isn't it funny how that's a hot take? Like telling your kids Santa's real.
Yeah, because there's
Or
a
not
lot
real.
of Christians that are like, no, it's a tradition.
And if you're
we
that
do
Christian,
it."
we don't want to totally offend you, but it's just weird to me that it's a hot take that you should. Tell
No,
the
because
truth
here's
to
the
your
thing. It
kids.
seems like a minor thing. I mean, we should talk about this. This is good. It seems like a minor thing, but you're growing up telling your child that Santa's real and he does all these things, and that God is real and that he does all these things, and then all of a sudden there comes an age where you're just like, by the way, Santa's not real.
You're setting your kids up for agnosticism.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that automatically leads to, well, what about God? But why should they believe anything you've said at that
Like
point?
for us, the way that we did Santa, he was like a symbol, you know, almost like a Narnia type symbol, and so like for me, it was always like this story, this tall tale based in truth.
And we
versus-
knew about him as a fictional character. It wasn't
both as historical and fictional. You know, like
Yeah,
the modern
learn about
fictitious
both.
version, and we enjoyed it. And Dad, you know, pretended to yell through the door that he was Santa when Josh and I were little, and he would eat the cookies. He got to enjoy those, you know. But it was fun, you know. And we all pretended, and it was a good time. But we also just used it as an allegory in our life, and I don't know. I still believe in Jesus, so.
Yeah,
Right.
when I was younger, really young, I totally did believe in Santa.
Well,
And-
Did you struggle with your faith?
No, absolutely not.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think most
He's
people
lying.
are okay. No. That's the thing, and that's what I was saying. Is it doesn't necessarily lead to that, and I think that's why most people are okay with it, because it's like, well, I mean, you know, I did it as a kid, and I was sad the day I figured out Santa wasn't real, but I was fine. It didn't have any long-lasting effects, and I think in most cases it probably won't. But it's more the principle of the matter.
Yeah.
That in everything we should have integrity.
You
and,
Pharisee.
And I'm just saying,
just kidding.
the principle of the matter that we should earn credibility and trust, you know. And
Well,
so
it's hard to teach your kids to tell the truth
if you lie to them.
if you lie to them for 10 years. So
Like,
I don't know.
think it's pretty simple. you
16
know?
years for me.
I think it's pretty
I
simple.
remember
Like,
the day I learned. It was 2 months ago.
It's about consistency, you know. We say lying's wrong, but then we lie to them, you know. Oh, but it's in the name of fun. It's for tradition, you know. I don't think it adds up.
Yeah.
There's probably somebody listening right now.
We're getting some angry emails after
I
this.
I guarantee you, there's people listening right now who still thought Santa was real.
Oh, we just ruined it for some people. Dude,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised in youth ministry how many 6th graders still believe in Santa.
I know. And then they get bullied for it.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Parents, get your act together.
Yeah, I will say this too as a youth pastor. You parents do need to get your act together because it's easy for you to have fun with it, but we're the ones that have to pick up the pieces and convince your kids to like you again. All right, I've had that conversation many times. Like, don't hate your parents forever. Okay.
Oh boy.
Sorry. I'm fine.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us for Theology Thursday. Look, we were not prepared, as we've already confessed. We just read an article, and we didn't really know much about it. But here's the thing. We're hanging out. It's Christmas. Typically, we take these weeks off, but we wanted to just spend some time chatting this week. And I think the main thing is, like, the moral here, obviously, we're talking about not lying and, you know, telling the truth. But also, to discover the truth, don't just assume things that you've been told and heard all this time. You know, study the stories for yourselves. Don't go based off the songs or the movies.
We're telling you to be a skeptic.
Or the Christmas specials. You know,
Telling you to be a student.
yeah, that's a better word. You know, like the Bereans, to test everything they were told by the Scriptures. You should test what your pastor says by the Scriptures. You should test what we say on this podcast by the Scriptures.
Unless it's me. I'm kidding. No, I test
Because then you know it's heresy.
Test everything.
Yeah,
by
you don't
the
need to
Scriptures.
test it. You can already throw it out.
Test everything by the Scriptures.
Test everything.
Emmanuel, God with us, is a powerful truth and it's an eternal truth. So, Merry Christmas to you all, and to all a good night.
Yah yeets.
Ryan, go ahead and say it.
To all of Yah yeets.